Are you an entrepreneur, creative pro, or in a transition to becoming one? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, where it's all about educating and motivating you with simple and easy to implement ideas. And of course, helping you create something awesome today. And now your host. He's a YouTuber, public speaker, whose deepest regret was not buying Bitcoin sooner, Roberto Blake.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. This is your host, Roberto Blake, helping you create something awesome today. Welcome back. And yes, my deepest regret is not buying Bitcoin sooner and maybe not dating one or two specific girls back in high school. But you learn to live with regrets. Anyway, joking aside, today is a great episode. Something that I've really been looking forward to talking to all of you about is my journey to being a homeowner, because as of the end of September, beginning of October of 2021, I officially became a homeowner and bought my first home here in Georgia. So I want to talk about that and the fact that I was able to do this as a self-employed person, which is really important. A lot of you want to become self-employed, you want to become entrepreneurs, or you want to become YouTubers. Right now, a lot of people are going through the great resignation. They're transitioning out of traditional work, and they're looking at things like being a full-time content creator on YouTube, Twitch streamers, TikTok, Instagram. They're looking at doing podcasts. People are looking at freelancing and gig work, the gig economy. People are looking to leave traditional work behind. And it's not because people are lazy. And it's not even this like sense of entitlement. I know that that is the narrative. And there is sometimes that for individual people. But as a whole, this is just coming down to people wanting to be happy. This is people admitting and having a reset button and realizing that they've been wildly unhappy with what their current circumstances and situations are. And that's what led me down the path of entrepreneurship and content creation and being an online business owner and working from home. And now I am a homeowner, which is still really weird to say all these months later. It still feels really weird. It's still an adjustment period. So that is also why I, from my main YouTube channel, haven't uploaded in the last 50 days as of the making of this recording. It's December of 2021. So it's been about 50 days since my last real YouTube upload to my main YouTube channel. And part of the reason for that is the way I built my business allowed me to take a necessary break from uploading content. Ironically, it's the thing that got me here, but I had to take a break from it to move into my house, get set up, get the internet up and running, rebuild a new home office here, basically from the ground up. And so I had to take a break. And the thing is, when you think about what that looks like. If I were working a traditional 9-to-5 job, I could have never made my home move a priority and taken it slowly the way that I needed to because of the pandemic. It's actually harder to move, believe it or not. Bears the thought, right? It's actually harder to move during a pandemic. So I was able to do those things and get set up. So I want to talk to you about what that has looked like, what home ownership looks like for me, what entrepreneurship looks like for me, why I was able to take a break and not have a significant hit to my income, what being a full-time YouTuber can look like. It's going to be different for a lot of people. I'm going to talk more about what it looks like for me and how it allowed me to become a homeowner. So that is what you're going to be getting today from me in our episode. It's going to be a very interesting hour here that we get to talk about this. But one of the reasons that I've actually been able to accomplish this is because of the fact that I can do sponsored content, the fact that I've diversified my income streams to sponsored content, affiliate marketing, my coaching business, selling my own digital products. Right now, I don't have like an online course that you can buy for $500 or anything. All I have is like $99 digital products. I do live workshops. I did public speaking, but then the pandemic drastically reduced that income. I was actually doing really well with public speaking. I get paid $5,000 to speak at events, the ones that pay. There are events that don't pay you, believe it or not. And I also get coaching clients from doing events. So there's a lot of these different income streams that I have. I probably can break down. I think I have like 17 income streams. I can break them down for you. The recent and most profitable income stream over the last 2 years, though, over the last 2 years, my biggest income stream went from being probably affiliate marketing to being sponsorships and doing sponsored content working with brands. And speaking of which, I actually have a sponsor that can help you if you are a content creator or you aspire to be one.
We thrive thanks to the support from our sponsors. Here's a word from one of them.
Recently, some of you might have heard of a company in the creator economy called Creative Juice. And one of their big claims to fame is that Mr. Beast is an investor in Creator Juice and their Creator Juice funds. Recently, 4 channels actually got funding from Creative Juice and Mr. Beast, and those channels were funded with a $1 million investment to grow their brand and their business ventures. And that is amazing and fantastic. But that doesn't mean that Creative Juice doesn't have solutions for small creators and aspiring full-time creators. Creative Juice at its core offers financial services and banking for creators. One of the things in my journey to becoming a homeowner was realizing that traditional institutions don't respect non-traditional work. And it can be very hard to find financial solutions and tools if you are a content creator. And that's where Creative Juice comes in. Creative Juice offers not only online banking for creators, but on top of that, you get a virtual debit card. You have the ability to get an advance on your YouTube AdSense account when you link it up using their Juice Boost feature. And they have other great free tools like their free invoicing tool that allows you, if you work with brands, to send invoices. Instead of spending $40 or $50 a month for an invoicing tool, you could have it for $0 with Creative Juice. So if you want to sign up for them, there is a link in the description down below. It's totally free to get your Juice bank account. See if you like the features and get started today. There's no risk. Thank you to Juice for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And also, just so you guys know, full transparency, I'm not only using this product, I've decided to invest in this company. This is one of the 3 or 4 companies in the creator economy that I straight up am becoming an angel investor in. So make sure you're checking them out. Link is in the description down below. Now, back to the show. Okay, so let's talk about this whole process here. If you're going to become a homeowner, you have to become wildly educated about a lot of different things. And to me, there was a lot that I had to prepare for, but I can break this down pretty simply for you. So let's break this down into, I think it's 4 components. I think we call these the 4 C's. So the 4 C's, if I'm not mistaken, are capital. So you have to have the capital for your closing cost, your down payment, all of that stuff, your earnest money. So you need the capital. You need money. So you need that. Number 2, you need credit or credibility. You need to have a good credit score. You need to make sure that you have a good payment history, not a lot of derogatory marks, aren't credit seeking. You need to have a good and solid credit score. So then you need also capacity. You have to prove your capacity. You might have the cash on hand, but can you prove that you have the capacity to support a loan, to support a mortgage, and to be able to make your payments? And so that's going to require you to be able to show how you make your money transparently. You're going to have to show things like your tax returns. You're going to have to show proof of income. And this becomes more complicated if you are self-employed. And then finally, after all of that, there's collateral. And that has to do with, in the worst case scenario, is the bank or the lender getting a good asset if you default on the loan? And what's the value of that asset? And what are the guarantees on that? So they want to have an inspection and appraisal of the home done to know, well, what do we get? If we don't get your money, if you don't pay off the loan, we're going to seize the property, we're going to seize the asset, and we want to know what we'd be getting. And so that's going to make it worth it to them to lend you the money. Because what you have to understand is when you're buying a home, if you are not buying that home outright in cash, if you're not buying your home outright in cash, which I ain't baller like that, and I know most of you in the audience probably aren't, then you're going to be taking out a loan from a bank or a lending institution. Now, the thing is, if we're content creators or entrepreneurs, we are non-traditional people by default, which means that it can be harder to prove our capacity for supporting a loan based on that. And they're going to want to verify that and get much more details. If you are a traditional employee, you literally just give them your pay stub. You literally just give them your W-2. If you're a W-2 person and you're making enough to be able to justify buying a home and you have enough capital in terms of the down payment, the vetting process for you is much easier. It's pretty much a done deal. This is actually also easier if you are specifically a W-2 employee. Primary example is if you are a government employee of some kind, or if you're in the armed services, this is going to be much easier for you. There may even be programs to help you with the down payment. And so you may not even have to come up with a lot of upfront money if that's your situation. Now, there are other situations where you may be able to get assistance with the down payment. And so that could be the capital part. For most people, the biggest problem for them is the capital for your down payment and your closing cost. For an entrepreneur, that may not be the case. And so that's something that is like easier on our side. If you're an entrepreneur, you might be able to come up with the money. You might have the cash on hand. Your problem will be verifying and proving and going through the hoops and the extra steps to prove your capacity to pay this loan in terms of the verification of your income. So for me, with the verification of my income stuff, that was made easier because of the fact that I have really good bookkeepers and accountants. So I have CPAs and bookkeepers. In fact, actually, I'm going to add something to the description of the video. And this is something you may want to check out in terms of a resource that I'm going to mention, Bench Accounting. So Bench Accounting is who I use for my bookkeeping. And now they weren't offering tax services in terms of CPAs when I started, but they are now. If you go to robertoblake.com/go/bench, that is a referral. And this is who I use for my bookkeeping and accounting services. So you can use them. And so what I like about this is, and I'm going to just paste this in the live chat as well as the show notes and the comments and the description of this podcast episode. So the thing with having CPA, bookkeeper, that sort of thing, is it's really practical for a lot of reasons. But the main thing is it gives you just, an accurate financial paper trail and track record. And it makes it easier for situations where they need to be able to verify your income and how you're making your money. And that, you're doing everything above board. And that you're operating a truly legitimate business, because the thing is, we have to prove our legitimacy. We have to prove our legitimacy a lot more as self-employed people, whether you're a freelancer, whether you are an online coach, whether you're a YouTube content creator, whether you're a streamer, you are going to have to prove your legitimacy to these traditional institutions. And if you want to prove your legitimacy of being something outside of a W-2 employee, then you're going to need these bookkeeping services and you're going to need accountants so that you have a paper trail and documentation. So what they're going to ask for is your P&Ls, which is your profit and loss statements. So you're going to want to show them profit and loss statements. That's something that your bookkeepers and accountants can generate for you, because they're tracking all of your income and all of your expenses. So there's that part of it. All right. Then in terms of, they need another level of verification from this. So they're going to need the government to confirm this. And so for the government to confirm this, that's where they're going to need your tax records. So they're going to need either your tax transcripts from the IRS or the tax filings that your accountant did. In my case, the lender asked for both of those. So I gave them everything. And in my case, they asked for it. They asked for 3 years of P&L statements, and they asked for, I believe, 2 years of taxes. So I asked for 3 years of P&L, and they asked for 3 years of my bookkeeping and 2 years of my taxes. They also wanted to see the bank statements for my bank accounts, for my business bank account, which you need to separate your business and personal transactions. They wanted to see my business bank account, and they wanted to see my personal bank account for the last, I believe it was the last 3 months throughout this closing process. And then they wanted that again the week that we were closing. And so you're going to have to be prepared for that. You need to be emotionally prepared to have these people pouring over and going through every inch of your financial life. And this is why it's important to have very clean, very good records of your business transactions as well as your personal finances and have those things separated. You need a business bank account and you need a personal bank account. And again, not a lawyer, not a CPA. This is not financial advice. I'm telling you what I went through. I'm just telling you what I went through and like how much trouble it was, right? So this is just lived experience. That's all you get. So when it comes to that, one of the things that you have to do is you have to just be kind of emotionally prepared for all of that and know that they'll ask for it up front and they'll ask for it at the last minute. So in terms of proving your income capacity, proving your ability to pay a loan and a mortgage, proving you're not a deadbeat, it's going to be that. And it's going to be also your credit score and not having any late payments or missed payments in your recent credit history. So that's going to be very important for you to keep up with that. I got an excellent credit score. I got to about an 800, but then just the process of doing this took my credit score down. And then right after I closed on my house, I took out some credit cards for like Lowe's and some other things that I needed to help me get the house in order. And that helped take my credit score down considerably. So I had almost like an 800. Then I went down to a 750, and now I'm like at a 710 or something like that. And it'll come back in a year or two when it starts seeing all my good mortgage payments, once I pay down some more of my cards and things like that. So yeah, you're going to have to prove yourself, and that's going to be hard. And you're going to have to keep answering the question basically, well, how do you make your money? What do you do for a living? And they're going to want to verify that. Now, here's the other part of that. So you definitely need the business bank account. A lot of people skip this step, and it's really important. And they need to be able to see where you're capturing and coming, your money's coming from. The good news for me is that most of my money comes from very, very legitimate companies, and that because I also use PayPal to capture money, Stripe to capture money, and that I also have brand deals a lot of times go directly to my business bank account. That just really made things a lot easier in terms of them needing to know where the money comes from. The other thing is for my down payment, my money was coming out of a savings account. So that's where I put the money for my down payment. So they wanted the bank records and history of that savings account. And that's also where my earnest money came from. Now, for those of you who don't know, when it comes to earnest money, you maybe never heard that term. When it comes to your down payment, when it comes to your closing cost, when it comes to the capital part of the money you need to buy a home, first of all, a lot of you are under the myth that you need like 20% down payment. It's optimal and it's better. And I'm not going to lie, it's optimal and better for you to do 20% down payment. But that's not what I did. And most of you that are millennials and Gen Z that are trying to become homeowners, that's probably not going to be realistic for most of you. Most of you, it's not going to be realistic for you to do a 20% down payment. It certainly wasn't realistic for me. I did something like a 3.5 or a 4% down payment. I did something like a 3.5 or 4% down payment. And yes, I'll have higher interest, except for the fact that I won't. So my plan is to basically be the worst deal for the bank possible. And by being the worst deal for the bank possible, I mean that I'm going to save $200,000 on interest by paying off my mortgage early, even though every financial guru says, don't do that. Interest rates are low. It's good debt. No, I'm not paying $200,000 more for something than I have to. And no, I'm not going to say, oh, well, I could invest that money in the stock market. I don't know what'll happen with the stock market. Investing in Google and Apple and Microsoft like I do, it probably goes up. They're right. But I make enough money to justify, I'm just going to pay off my house and not worry about it. And by pay off my house, I mean, instead of 30 years, I'm like looking at 10 or less. So I'm just going to throw my extra money from brand deals, affiliate marketing, and other stuff. It's like if I pay off the house, I know what happens. I save over $200,000 of interest instead of trying to think about how I'm going to make an extra $200,000 in the stock market. I'm like, no, I'll still invest in the stock market. I can still max out things like, in fact, in my case, I have to restructure as an S Corp so that I can actually put money into my Roth IRA without having to do backdoor contributions. But I'm going to have my accountants do backdoor contributions to my Roth. I'm going to probably do a Roth 401k, again, not financial advice, so that I can put in even more money where I'm taxed on the seed instead of the tree. And I'm going to do all of those things and hit my caps. Of course, I'm going to hit my caps because I automate how I invest in my retirement and stocks anyway. I automate it. And as far as my individual stocks, yeah, I just buy Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Adobe, and basically anything else that's in the creator economy, I basically buy it. Again, not financial advice. That's just how I do it. Because a lot of those things, they're digital, they're virtual. And my hedge is this. If those companies go out of business, the world is probably over or America's probably over. So I might as well bet that things are going to go well for America and that humans are going to exist on Earth. Because my plan B in that case is I guess I have to be a warlord. So like either Google and Apple and Microsoft will win, or America is over and the human race is probably over. So that's my answer, right? So I'm not anticipating losing. So like I said, I can invest more than the average bear in my stocks. And in my retirement, I'm probably going to invest more than the average American. So I'm just going to pay off my mortgage and not have it hanging over my head. So with all that said, for me, what made sense was not to worry about 20%, not worry about prime mortgage insurance and the extra, because all I have to do is make enough payments to get to 20% equity anyway. And as long as I can get to 20% equity in my house, then it cancels out the need for PMI and having that mortgage insurance that protects the lender and paying that extra, which then reduces my monthly payments. And then with my monthly payments reduced, I can pay more of that to principal and reduce my interest even further. So I'm just So the thing is, I can get to that 20% without it having to have been my upfront down payment to be able to get into the house more easily. And then I can still get to that 20% number over time. So for a lot of you, instead of trying to say, oh, I have to put down 10%, I have to put down 20%, maybe you put down the least amount percentage-wise that they will allow you to, just like I did. And again, not financial advice, but I'm telling you what I did, and maybe this is helpful to some of you. But then I can go ahead and that same amount of money that I put in, I'm like, okay, well, what if I put in that same amount of money directly toward my principal in installments over the course of a year on top of my mortgage payments? Well, then all of a sudden, a year goes by, and then maybe, just maybe, because a year went by, maybe I got from, being 3.5% in terms of equity, maybe all of a sudden, oh, now in 1 year, I'm got at like 8 or 9%. Oh, in year 2, I'm already at 15 or 16. Oh, here's year 3. I'm up to that 20%. Oh, I'm not having to pay that extra PMI. Oh, it's like, and now my payments I only have to pay that higher rate and those higher payments for like just a few short years. And so that's what I, would do in that case. That's just me. Now, her healthy home asked a really interesting question. Were you able to get the full amount you asked for from the loan company? In my case, yes. Absolutely. In my case, yes. In fact, in my case, and let's talk about the inspection and appraisal process. So, because in my inspection, I found things that were going to have to be fixed or repaired in the house and I was like, hey, what can we do about this? I was able to get $7,500 toward my closing cost from the seller because I negotiated hard. If I had negotiated a little bit harder, to be honest, I probably could have got maybe 10,000 toward closing from the seller, but I got 7,500 in closing toward the seller. The other thing is the house appraised over the agreed upon sales price. We went up from the asking price by about $10,000. But here's the thing: I got it appraised, and the house was appraised for another 10,000 more than that. So, in my deal, and this is in my deal, yes, the lender covered me for the full amount. I got an extra 10,000 in value because of the appraisal, and I got 7,500 toward my closing cost. So for me, oh, and by the way, the value of the house has went up since then. So it worked out very well for me overall. That's what worked out for me. So so I bought my house the last day of September, I believe. I was still at Vid Summit while this was all going down. So in my case, since I was at Vid Summit, I gave my mother power of attorney and had her do the signing and closing for me because I was still at Vid Summit. I wouldn't get back for another couple of days. So in a situation like that, you have to make somebody a power of attorney. It has to be somebody you trust. It has to be a family member you trust so they literally don't steal your house. So you have to do something like that. So for me, in terms of people I trust in that situation, it would either be my mom or my sister or my best friend, Tiffany. So that's what you might have to do if you're an entrepreneur who travels and you're on the road all the time and your closing date happens while you're literally on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world. That's what you have to do. So I did that, and on my closing day, I wired the money from a bank while I was in California. Sat there and cried in the bank, and people were asking me why I was crying, and I said I just became a homeowner. I just sent the money for my house. So that's that's a real thing. I'm tearing up now, actually. So everyone was like, believe it or not, the people in the bank, actually, I was sitting there crying, and they started clapping for me. I'm not joking. And this is so amazing. And people think the world is such this horrible and terrible place, but there are good people in the world, and there are people who are kind, and some people are happy to see you win and not see you fail. So for me, I had this very emotional moment. And I didn't expect to have that emotional moment. I sat there in the bank and I was crying. I was crying knowing that I just became a homeowner. And people were coming and were clapping and saying, "Congratulations, young man, and good for you." And the lender, not the lender, sorry, the teller at the bank that was processing the check, the wire transfer payment, came around and shook my hand. And it was this really emotional thing. It was this really emotional thing. I had another moment like that when I sent the first check for the mortgage, the first mortgage payment. And so it's this really emotional thing to go through, to buy the house, to close the house, to do all those things. The process can be grueling. I went through a very grueling 45-day kind of process for all this, 30, 45-day process for all this. And so it was a really emotional thing for me to do this. I'm 37 years old, and I literally achieved the American dream at every level except for getting married and having kids. I've achieved the American dream. And I did it in a way that people said was impossible. Do you realize how many people didn't think I would make it as an entrepreneur? Told me all kinds of the horrible things people said to me when I first got started with entrepreneurship, the terrible things people said to me in the comments of my first YouTube videos. The things people said to me, even when I got to 100,000 subscribers, and there were people like literally expecting to see me fail. It was a lot. It's very emotional, and so yeah, to get to that place. I mean, there were so many people for years and years and years they've said, get a real job, get a real job, get a real job. And now here we are in the great resignation. And a lot of those same people are talking about they're burned out. A lot of those people are talking about how crappy their boss treats them. A lot of those people are saying, well, how do I do what you do? Or like it's you know, we're in a completely different place than we were like 10 years ago with how people are starting to view and see the world. And the thing is, being someone who is 5 or 10 years ahead of the curve, people don't applaud until you win. You know, all the way, people will kick you up and down the mountain, and then they don't applaud until you win. And then after you win, they start getting salty and jealous about it sometimes too. And then they want to kick you and try to take you down off the mountain to humble you. And it's this really weird thing. But in this situation, I was so happy that I had these strangers who didn't really know me, didn't know my story. They were proud of me. Strangers who didn't know my story were rooting for me and were proud of me in a way that even some people in my life hadn't supported me. And that was really just it was this really great experience that I'm grateful for. It was this experience that I'm grateful for, and it really kind of did restore some of my faith in people and in the kindness of strangers, to be in that moment and knowing that that's not everyone's situation, and that even people who that's not their situation, or it's something they could only hope or dream or wish for, were genuinely and sincerely happy for me, or genuinely and sincerely happy for me. And then so when some people find out now, that I'm a homeowner at 27, like when I go, when me and my brother go to like Lowe's, like they kind of know us here at our local Lowe's now. Me and my brother go there and we get all these supplies for the house, right? And they're very nice. So these people are very kind, but whenever they ask, why are you buying so much stuff, or what's the project, or are you a contractor or whatever, they they find out that I'm a homeowner in my 30s, and they go, wow, that's amazing, young man. And they're like, well, what do you do for a living? And I tell them, well, I have an online business. I do social media consulting, and I'm a full-time content creator. And then they ask me about it and I tell them, and a lot of them, they're shocked and they're like, and you can make money doing that? And I go, 6 figures. And they're shocked. They're shocked. And it's really interesting what their reactions are. And the thing is, the reactions that people are having today when I tell them what I do is very different than it was just 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, let alone 5 years ago, let alone 6 years ago, let alone 8 years ago. So it's really interesting. And a lot of you have seen my come up. A lot of you have been around and you've seen my come up. You've seen how I've gone about this, and that I really did come from nothing. We're in this era. We're in this era where everyone believes that every entrepreneur has a fake sob story about being broke and being poor. But it's like, what if we just take into account that a lot of people in this country struggle? So even the people who are successful probably were struggling at some point in their life. Even if they had a good life when they were young and when they were started out, you could argue, even if they start out privileged, a lot of people, they something happens in life. Even if you start out privileged, it's not a guarantee that things won't happen and that you won't have what's called a reversal of fortune. There were a lot of people who get scammed that are privileged, who don't know because they didn't like come from nothing. They get taken advantage of, and then their kids pay for their mistakes and they lose everything. And so, oh, your grandparents had it good. Maybe your parents had it good. By the time it's your turn, your family squandered everything and they didn't learn the lessons of their elders, and they didn't even pass on to you the education. And so, yeah, a lot of people start over, even if their family had a good like high point a generation or two ago. by the time it's the third or fourth generation, a lot of people are starting from nothing. And a lot of people are starting from broke because, they're paying for the consequences of their parents' choices. A lot of people never hear about that. But I literally know people that's happened to where they had a good childhood, everything was going great. And then, their parents lost all the money gambling or got swindled by Bernie Madoff or something like that, or that their grandparents did something and then the family lost its reputation or lost the business. I've known people that started out privileged and they lost everything because with the healthcare system, their mom or dad got cancer and the business went under and they had all this medical debt. I've known that to happen to people. I know kids who have started on third base, ending up right back in the dugout. And so that's why I don't judge. I don't judge because I've talked to people and I know their stories. I know people who've had it all and lost it. And I know people who've come from nothing and got in everything and then lost it again, got it again. I've seen it with my own eyes. And to an extent, I've lived it. I lived literally coming from next to nothing. My parents, I'm a child of divorce. You can start out with a decent life and then your parents get divorced, times can get really hard financially. I was raised by a single mom. I'm the oldest of 4 children. It's like my thing is not some fake guru sob come up story. My lived experience is like a real case of having it rough. There are people who've had it much worse, but it was no picnic. It was no picnic. And I'm a community college dropout, by the way. Smart as I am, I'm a community college dropout. You realize that if I told you if I told you that there's a young man, Black and Latino, child of divorce, not a lot of great role models, raised by a single mom, oldest of 4 kids, lives in a small town in the South, small military town, doesn't go into the military, community college dropout, starts $6 an hour in the mall. If I asked you, well, paint that kid's future. If I asked you to paint that kid's future, a lot of people would say that kid has no future. If I asked you to paint the future of a Black Latino kid, child of divorce, single parent home, oldest of 4 kids, constant bills, financial stress all the time, starts out at the mall, making $6 an hour. If I tell you to paint that kid's future, you'll tell me the kid has no future. You tell me that kid is not going to be a 6-figure entrepreneur. You're not going to tell me that kid's going to be something special. You don't tell me that kid's going to make multiple 6 figures. You don't tell me that kid is going to change people's lives. You don't tell me that kid's going to be a business owner or respected or a public speaker. That's not the future you paint for somebody with that background. And yet it's what happened. And the fact that I'm an outlier, it doesn't mean that I got lucky. The rarity of a result is not proof of luck. I did outlier things to get an outlier outcome. I learned outlier things to get an outlier outcome. So there's just a completely different, it hits so differently. It hits so differently to actually live it and to truly see that the transformation you can have in your life through knowledge and applying knowledge and doing that can make a difference in your life and a difference for your family, and that you can truly build something with nothing. I have for those of you who are watching the video version of the podcast, audio listeners, this is, there's going to be a short gap for a second. I need to get one prop off of my shelf for the live video audience to make a point. And you definitely will want to watch, if you're listening to this, you'll definitely want to watch the video, but hang on one quick second. So the prop I have in my hand, this is an artifact from the beginning of my YouTube journey. So this is the Sony Webby HD camcorder. This is a what I think is a $230 camcorder. I think at the time that was literally all the money I had in the world in 2009. And this was the camcorder that I made my first handful of YouTube videos with in 2009, right? And so I was working as a graphic designer and web designer at the time for a company. And so this camera started all, and aside from this camera, the next thing that I had was a Samsung Galaxy S3 that I think is like a $200-$300 phone back in the day, early smartphones for Android before the Galaxy phone started costing a lot more money and competing with Apple. They were very different. And then after that, I was doing my YouTube videos on like a $450 laptop. It was an Asus laptop. Some of you might remember my early reviews of budget laptops. I was using hella broke gear back then, $150 lights. And then when I started doing like freelance photography and doing wedding photography and video on the weekends to make extra money, like this camera that I bought in 2012 for like $650-$700, again, probably all the money I had in the world at the time. Like that, that's all I had. Is I had modest gear. I had gear, and the thing is, my gear is probably, even then, you could probably get better and cheaper gear today than what I started out with. And I started very modest, very frugal, from like truly nothing. And today, 10 years later, I'm a homeowner. Like 10 years later, I'm a homeowner. In a very nice house that I've been blessed with a great community, with multiple income streams, passive, active, and recurring income. Wonderful fan base. I'm able to help my sisters, my brother, my mom. I'm able to help my friends. I'm able to help my community. And it all is because I did unconventional, non-traditional things that people look down on, and the fact that I was 5 to 10 years ahead. And the thing is, I should have been 15 to 20 if I trusted my instincts and I trusted my gut, and I didn't let people gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. Because as great as all this is, it could have happened sooner, and it should have happened sooner. I didn't trust my instincts nearly as much as I should have, and I let people and their negativity get to me. Because it could have been bigger. It could have been more. As awesome as this is, it could have been more. It could have been bigger. It could have been better. But I don't regret or lament that, because it's like, it's a lesson. I learned the lesson. I understood the assignment, and I will never, ever let people make me doubt myself like that about my instincts and about what I understand and about my understanding of how the world works ever again. I will never let people trick me into doubting myself and to embracing fear, doubt, and unbelief ever again. Ever again. Because I was right. I was right about what I had the potential to do. I was right beyond my wildest imagination. And the thing is, I should have committed, and I should have believed in myself more. Coffee Talk and Tech asks, so what age did you start believing in yourself? I'm almost embarrassed to say it. Probably 28 or 29. Probably 28 or 29. Somewhere between 27, somewhere in my mid to late 20s. Somewhere between the ages of, maybe it was age 26 to 27 is where it really started. But I started acting on it at maybe age 27, 28. So, yeah. So, yeah, the humble beginnings are real, and that's something that's important. And it's always about being a lifelong learner. And that's how I learned about, I learned the hard way. I didn't have a true mentor. Like I told you, I didn't have a true mentor, and I didn't have true role models. The closest thing to that is my mom. My mom's my hero. She is the strongest person I know, raising 4 kids, having the courage to leave and go out on her own with, very little support, you know, all to pursue making a better life for her children, making a better life for herself, and to try to squeeze some happiness out of this life instead of settling for a situation she was unhappy with. Again, it's not my story to tell per se, but that's why my mom is my hero. A lot of people think that that's cliche or that's hokey or that's like, whatever. Or again, a lot of people think that something is some sob story, but it's like, it's what people live. I mean, if you look around, it's what people are living. Like, and again, no offense to anyone who lives a traditional life or wants a traditional life, but the thing is, non-traditional choices and careers can be powerful if the traditional thing hasn't worked out so well for you. And if you are very unique, if you're a very unique person, if you've ever felt like square hole round peg, sorry, like, or square shaped round hole or something like that, whatever the saying is, if you feel like you don't fit in or a misfit or an outlier, then traditional and conventional approaches may not be for you. You might need to do outlier behaviors because you're looking for outlier results. And number two, you have outlier qualities. You're not typical. If you don't present as typical, then doing the typical thing that worked for everybody else probably isn't going to work for you or make you happy or make you satisfied with what you're trying to achieve here. So when you think about it from that perspective, what I'm saying makes a lot more sense. When you think about it from that perspective, what I'm saying here makes a lot more sense. And for me, that's why I took an unconventional approach to things. So let me layer some of this for you. Let me layer some of this for you. Non-traditional choices, not going into debt and going to community college. Going to community college, working while taking a full course load or a part-time course load, paying in cash, not because I'm baller, but because I'm literally just taking all the money I have and I was doing school, right? I was so broke that one of the most traumatic things, and this might be why I'm an online educator and I teach entrepreneurship and creativity and the creator economy on the internet. It's probably because when I was in college, a professor once said to me, because I was so broke, I was like, if you couldn't afford the tools for the assignment, why did you even take the class? I have never forgotten those words. I have never forgotten those words and what that meant and how that cut me and how that hurt and how that embarrassed me. And I might owe a lot of my success to how much damage those words did. So for me, doing like things that are unconventional on a long enough timeline have worked, but it's that I've been a couple of years ahead of the curve and you have to take and eat a lot of crap. You have to take a lot of crap if you are ahead of the curve or if you can predict the future. You have to take a lot of crap like that because I was ahead of the curve. Because when I tell the story now of the fact that I refused to start my adult life in debt. So this is almost 20 years ago. This is like in 2002. When I say I refused to start my adult life in debt and that I went to community college and I worked, when I say that on stages today, I get a standing ovation and applause when I speak on stages today and I say that. When I was first starting out, I took crap for that for years. I took crap for that for 10 years and then the world had to change. The world had to change and we had to go through things like the student loan crisis, massive debt, the Great Recession. We had to go through all of that because in 2002, I got dunked on for going to a community college. I got dunked on for 10 years for going to a community college and not having a 4-year degree to show for myself. And today, for not doing that, after another 10 years, basically, close to it, since I graduated in 2002, so we're almost like 20 years now. Like today, I'm applauded and celebrated for the instinct, the commitment, and the forethought and the foresight to go to community college, go for a practical degree, but not even finish it, go directly into my industry without a degree and not just decide to get it just to get it, and to focus on making money as early as possible in life and to not go into debt if I could avoid it. I'm applauded for this 20 years later, but for 10 years I had to eat so much crap, be disrespected, put down, and looked down on for that choice. That's playing the long game. That's why I was a track and cross country runner. It is literally being able to endure suffering in the name of an outcome and a result that you want. Long term. Like you're a track and cross country runner and you do long distance. Oh, suffering. That's what you signed up for. All you do is show up and suffer. And that's kind of what I think like entrepreneurship and self-employment and those ventures are kind of there's that's the thing. And so I think for everything I suffered through, everything I went through, I think that it's now that, oh, well, I won and it was worth it. But that's long term. So like for me, I get really hurt and sad when I see people giving up so early. I see people give up so early. I was almost one of those people, by the way. I see people give up so early in life or so early in their career. A decade makes a difference. A decade makes a difference. And a decade of discipline will change your life in a way that you can't fathom. The gap in the difference between 17 to 27 and 27 to 37 is not even close. And what I see for myself from 37 when I get to 47, it's not even close. I'm not scared of 47. I'm actually looking forward to it. But it's not even close. A decade of discipline, a decade of commitment to achieving a goal, a decade of commitment to the things that you believe, it makes all the difference in the world. It makes all the difference in the world. And I can tell you that. I've lived it. I can look back 20 years and know I was right and they were wrong. But you have to see it through. You have to see it through. And so for me, that was like probably one of the big beginners in terms of like outlier stuff was the fact that it's like, okay, I'm not going in to start my adult life in debt in this way. The other thing was when I started out 20 years ago, what was it? Web design was not considered a real career in 2002. I want you to imagine in 2002, college Roberto, like having the balls to tell his professors that they're wasting our time teaching us how to do graphic design for newspaper advertisements because the web is the future and it's the present, and that companies are going to spend billions of dollars on web banner advertisements, and they're not going to spend as much money in print in our lifetime, that they're going to spend less over our lifetime in print, and that you're hurting us by making us focus on newspaper and magazine design advertisements when you should be giving equal time to digital and web, and you should embrace that. They told me I was full of it. They told me I was full of crap. They told me I was full of crap. They told me the newspaper industry has been around forever and it will be around forever and it will stay on top and it will never decline. They said this with their whole chest, and this is 2002, so I get it. This is 2002. Like they said that with their whole chest. 10 years later, funny how that worked out, let alone 20. They said that with their whole chest, 2002. I kid you not. I told them in 2002, 2003, I told them that you should prioritize teaching us more about web design, and you should teach us more about Macromedia Dreamweaver and Adobe Go Live, and teach us more about coding, because I told them this. I told them, I'm like, in 10 or 15 years, every company in America will need a website. I told them this because I was an 18-year-old kid, but I've been coding and doing web design since I was 13 years old. I taught myself code at 13 years old, another outlier behavior. Taught myself code at 13 years old while I was spending the summer at home. Everyone else was playing. Everybody was going to the pool. Everyone was going to camp. I was at home taking care of my younger siblings while my mom went out and worked. That's how my summer at 13 was. AOL. So I'm sitting there with AOL, and I'm not even sad. I love the internet at 13 years old. I love AOL. I'm like, well, how do they make websites? Oh, you have to learn this thing coding. Well, does it cost money to code? Does it? Oh, I can just code. It costs me nothing. I can learn to code, and I learned to code. It back in the old days of things like webmonkey.com, Angelfire, GeoCities, Lycos, Homestead.com. This was my life. This was my life from age 13 to 18 before going to college, and then doing it even more and getting really into it before the days of like MySpace and Facebook. And so for me, it was these outlier behaviors, and I was right about the future. And I was right about the future because I was paying attention to the present, and I was invested in a part of the present that other people were taking for granted because I'm a nerd, you know? So like I was into, think about all the stuff I was into that became popular like 20, 25 years later. Marvel and DC Comics. I'm a nerd getting beat up at the bus stop for Marvel and DC Comics, and stuff like that. Have people kicking my binder of trading cards when out of my hand when I'm playing Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and I'm collecting the cards and everything like that. Getting beat up, getting bullied, having people rip my cards up in front of me. All this nonsense. This is over 25 years ago. And then look at it become mainstream now. Look at this stuff become mainstream and popular now, all these years later. Think about, oh, nerd, camera nerd, and everything like that. Oh, camera nerd. Like, nobody's dunking on camera nerds now, are they? No one's dunking on camera nerds now, right? Like, right. Because this is what happens when you're ahead of the curve. This is what happens if you believe that you understand something that other people do not, and you don't let them just write you off as arrogant. And that's what my professors did. My professors, because I was poor and I had nothing yet to show for myself, they didn't believe me, and they didn't think what I said had any merit. And I ended up being historically correct. I was right about the future of Web 2.0. I was right about the decline of print design in favor of graphic design, digital art design. I was right because I was invested and I was in it, and I wasn't trading on what I knew or the past. And people romanticize their past. I continue to be a student of what's happening right now, and not just double down on what worked back in the day. And I start over, and I start from scratch and build new YouTube channels all the time and do this stuff. And I listen to small YouTubers, and I hang out with small YouTubers because I will not become one of the old farts who thought that they knew everything because they did it 20 years ago. I will not allow myself to fall behind, and I will continue to be a student of the game because I'm not going to lose, and I'm not going to fail to embrace the future because the past worked out so well for me. And I think that that makes me a better educator than most people, credentials or not. Yeah, I said it. I think that when anyone does imply or try to dunk on me or call me, quote unquote, a fake guru, just because they see things that they feel looks like some people who probably are fake gurus, it's like, guys, you can't judge everybody off of other people. You judge people as individuals. Imagine if every single YouTuber, and this has happened, by the way, imagine the worst YouTubers you can think of. Now imagine every single content creator forever has to apologize for them or try to not do anything that remotely looks like what they're doing forever. And that's actually probably happening to some people, or some people feel like that. Imagine forever being held like to whatever the worst thing that Jake Paul ever did. Just to use him as an example, it's no offense to the guy. Like, just imagine. Like, that's so frustrating, right? That's so frustrating. And so as one of the people trying to do things the right way and do things honestly, as an online educator, as an online entrepreneur, as a marketer, whenever I have to hear people whine about whatever somebody else did, I'm like, well, I'm not them. Well, I'm not them. And it rubs me extra hard a certain way. And I'll tell you this, I have no problem telling you this, and not to be political. It rubs me an extra hard way as a Black man. It rubs me an extra hard way as a Latino whenever you see people just being judged off of what a group of people do that has nothing to do with you and nothing to do with the way you did. It's like, well, I did even one thing that I have one thing in common with this person you don't like, or this person that screwed you over, this person that gave you a bad experience. Oh, and you're going to judge me off of that, not off of what I'm actually doing, not off of what people actually say about me, not off of my own content of character. Okay, bet. I see you. So yeah, no, it rubs me the wrong way. It absolutely rubs me the wrong way to be judged by what other people in the same space as me do, instead of being judged off of what I do and how I roll. And so and sometimes, by the way, I am terrible at reacting to criticism. I'm actually really good at taking constructive criticism. Most criticism is not constructive. And I think people have said, like, they'll use the phrase someone can't take criticism, when what they should be saying, if they're using precise language, is that they should say that person reacts poorly to criticism. Someone could take criticism, and by that I mean implement and make changes and improve. But what they're judged on is how they react to criticism, which, okay, to some extent I understand. But somebody's reaction to something where they're being attacked, and yeah, some people say, oh, well, criticism's not an attack. It depends on how you deliver it. Anyone here who's ever been mistreated at their job can probably relate to that. Because the thing is, a lot of people won't hesitate when it comes to a bad boss or an employer talking down to people and then saying, oh, well, it's constructive criticism, or this is feedback. A lot of people will rake. If you're a rich CEO and you do that stuff, it'll be raked over the coals. You'll be raked over the coals. But if you're an anonymous person on the internet, or you're someone that is like doing criticism-based content, the way that if the criticism that you level as a personality on the internet, if you'd be raked over the coals for that, if you said the same things to an employee, then it is in fact your delivery. And there is a better way to give that criticism. If you know you'd get canceled if you were a multi-million-dollar CEO giving that criticism to an employee, and you're going to give that criticism to someone, even if they're a public figure, I would reconsider how your delivery is going. I would strongly because the thing is, I mean, again, it probably won't matter to the audience or whatever, but it's just like in my mind, it's like, okay, how is what you're saying for the benefit of the person you're saying it to? And can they do something with that? And are they likely to be able to take that internally and be able to do something with that? And so even when I coach people and I have to give them criticism, I think about, how can I give this to somebody in a way where they won't reject it and they'll make use of it? Because if I give someone advice or criticism and I deliver it poorly and they're not going to use it, then it was self-serving and selfish on my part. It wasn't for their benefit. It was for my benefit so that I can say I was right. They have to be able to internalize it and use it and benefit from it and be in a place to receive and accept it, or it's a failure of communication on my part and it wasn't in their interest and it wasn't helpful to them. It was just helpful to me to prove a point or to look good or to say how smart I am. And so if you're going to give people criticism, your own ego has to be taken out of it. Or it's not that useful to them, or it's not helpful, or it's not constructive. And so you have to be thoughtful. Now, in terms of reacting, I've learned that I need to be better at reacting to criticism, even if it's criticism I don't like, or it's not valid, or if it is valid. Taking criticism is something I'm good at. I'm able to look at something even from someone I don't like, and I've done this. I've taken things that people I don't like have said and said, I don't like their delivery, or I think that so-and-so is a piece of crap or a scumbag, but they're right. And so I can improve, or I can do this. Or what if I did improve? Or what if I did train up on this? Or what if I did make this tweak or that tweak and everything like that? I have maybe what would be one of the rarest traits in the world. I'm actually capable of learning from assholes. Again, I rarely say things like that here on the podcast, and I try to keep things clean. But yes, I have the rare quality of the fact that even if somebody is a bad teacher, even if someone's an asshole, I can learn from them. I think that I probably learned a lot from my bosses about what not to be as a boss or a manager or a leader, because I have that capacity to say, I don't like you. I don't like your delivery. I don't like your style. I don't even think that you have good character or good behavior, or that maybe you're not a nice person. I can still learn from you though. And so that's the thing. I will learn from anyone that I think might be correct. I will consider the possibility that I'm wrong. I will extract every ounce of value from somebody, even if I don't like them. I will extract every ounce of value from someone's experience and someone's knowledge and somebody's results, even if I don't like them. Facts. It's better if I do like them, by the way. And it's easier to learn if I like them. My favorite teachers, the ones that I got the A's in classes one, were the ones that I liked the most. The ones that I liked the most, the ones that I felt respected me, the ones that took an interest in me personally. I did the best in their classes. I performed the best. You know, how you treat people has a lot to do with the results that they produce. When you treat people a certain way, you know, the results end up being radically different. And so I absorbed those lessons, and that has actually been helpful for me as an educator. So, you know, that makes a difference. But circling back to where this all comes into, like the home ownership journey and the entrepreneur journey, as we start to close out the show a little bit, the thing I'll say is that what put me in the position that I'm in today is the fact that I kept trying to grow my understanding and my ability of things. And so as a self-employed person, I went from being employed to being a freelancer. I evolved from being a freelancer to building multiple streams of income, because being a freelancer gave me time freedom. And time freedom is something we've talked a lot about here on the show. And it's something we've talked about with people in interviews. That time freedom let me start building other income streams. Being a full-time freelancer gave me the time freedom to start doing YouTube and doing it consistently. And I did it consistently for 11 months to build an audience and to get to 10,000 subscribers. And then after 2 years, I had 20,000 subscribers. And in that second year, through that third year, like I hustled. And then I went from 20,000 to 70,000, 75,000 in 1 year. February of 2015, you can look this up. February of 2015, I had 20,000 subscribers in February of 2015. And so in February 2015, I went from that 20,000 subscribers to, by the end of December of 2015, I had 75,000. You can look it up. I grew by like 55,000 subscribers or more in 1 year. And then by April, May of 2016, I had a silver play button, or I was on my way to a silver play button. I had 100,000 subscribers, and then I got my silver play button delivered. And that was, as they say, the rest is history. And so 2016, I got a silver play button. Every year after the summer of 2016, I basically, except for the last 2 years, aside from I think the last 2 years, I basically got 100,000 subscribers every year after that. So 2016, by the end of 2017, I was over 200,000. 2018, over 300,000. 2019, 400,000. 2020, I got to 500,000. It's 2021. I did not sprint. I did not hustle this year as hard, because I spent this year and last year. I mean, you can look at it like this. The last 2 years we've been dealing with COVID. So no, I didn't hustle as hard, obviously. I spent the last 2 years taking a look at my mental health, taking a look at my life, taking a look at my business, and getting my life together. And now I'm a homeowner. And I don't know that I could do both. I don't think I could have grinded and hustled and pushed as hard as I could and got out a bunch of YouTube videos and still did everything that I had to do to put myself in a position to buy a home. So you have to have priorities. You have to have time freedom. You have to have time management. You have to look at your situation with your stress, your mental health. And I feel like as we are starting, I think, to move out of the pandemic or move into a post-pandemic world, or move toward a world where we're now, this is the new normal. I feel my mental health is better. And that's why I've been able to do the thing that I haven't done in forever. I've been able now, this is day 7, I think. This is day 6 or day 7. I can't remember. This is either day 6 or day 7 in a row of doing content, of doing the podcast, of doing a video on YouTube, even though we're doing it as a live stream. And so as we move forward, I feel like in 2022, a big thing for me is that I'm going to be back to making regular content, not missing a week if I can help it. I'm going to try to do something I haven't done in a long time. In 2022, my goal is to not miss a week of uploading to YouTube one way or another. One way or another, I don't want to miss a week of uploading to YouTube in 2022. That is my new goal. My new goal is not a subscriber goal. My new goal is to get back to consistency. Consistency got me here. I want to go back to that to go further. And yes, what got you here won't get you there, but I feel like consistency will be a defining principle of my life in terms of my success. And so I'm going to commit to consistency. I'm going to try very hard to not miss a week of uploads on my main channel all of 2022. I might move the goalpost and say, well, not miss a week across my channels. Maybe that's what it is. So as long as I upload somewhere, maybe that's it. But my current goal is next year in 2022. I don't want to miss a week on my main YouTube channel. So that means I have to do at least 52 uploads in 2022. And I'm committed to that. And we'll see how I'm able to keep that commitment in the face of obstacles and things I cannot foresee. Yeah. Or maybe I will be able to foresee everything. Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Like the emperor. Maybe I just will foresee everything. Or maybe like Isaac Mendez from Heroes. Maybe I'll just paint my own future. Maybe I'll just paint the future. And it'll be what I want it to be. But what I can tell you is let's circle back to some of the more practical aspects of the home buying journey. Something I did was I spent years and years and years. The struggles with my family situation and with like medical bills and things like that meant that in my 20s, despite my best efforts, I had gotten into debt. I'd gotten into credit card debt. I'd gotten into some bill collections. Life was hard. Before I was 30, I dug my way out of all of that debt. And I managed to get those things paid off. And I managed to rebuild my credit from scratch. And I taught myself. Didn't go to any seminars, didn't buy any courses or nothing. I taught myself on Google for free everything I could about financial literacy. And so the thing is, I even got better in terms of my spending habits. So what I did was I became an entrepreneur. So I took control of my earning ability. I was frugal and disciplined. I took control of my spending. I managed and rebuilt my credit from nothing by being disciplined. And by taking my extra money, instead of improving my lifestyle, I improved my financial situation. If I invested in anything, I put it back into my business. I put it back into YouTube. I put it back into coaching. I put it back into everything that I was building. And I hustled and I grinded. And I did all that for 10 years. I saved money knowing that I was going to go into a house down payment. I saved money and put that money away. I grew my money by learning about investment. My entire 20s, I hadn't really been investing. I had dabbled in it once or twice here or there. My entire 20s, I had like nothing set aside for my retirement my entire 20s. I didn't start my retirement accounts until in my 30s. I started doing Acorns. I started doing Robinhood. I started doing all these things. I went into, and then I built a couple of years ago, I set up a traditional retirement account with my bank. And so I ended up doing that, and it's been growing and growing, and it's in the beginnings of a healthy place. It's not, hey, quit everything, stop doing everything, retire tomorrow. It's not even close. No, I'm not a millionaire yet. My horizon timeline to that, my personal goal at 37 right now, I'll be 38 next year. I'd like to hit that milestone at 40, but if I don't and I hit it before 45, I'm fine. What I'd really like is to know that I hit age 45, and if I wanted to, I have a fully funded retirement where I could live my current standard of living with a 4% drawdown. And at 45, I would actually like to pay off this house. So basically at 45, I would like to have reached a level of financial discipline and financial savvy that I've put myself in a position, I would say over the next 7 years at 45, I would like to put myself in that position to where my home is paid off and my retirement is fully funded, because it means that literally at that point, I have 100% financial freedom, at least with regard to all of my necessities, knowing that like I have that. And then everything I do at that point is like, basically, I know that there are no strings, you know? And so I'm not there yet, but that's what's like, okay, well, what does the next 10 years look like? Well, that's what the next 10 years looks like for me, is to, okay, for the rest of my life, there are no strings attached. Like, because, once you're in that situation, there's like, you're pretty much very, very stable. You're in probably the healthiest situation you theoretically could be. And I'd like to get there in life as soon as I can, reasonably, without working myself to death, because that's a thing. So it's, for me, it's a marathon, and I'm pacing myself with the I know how far I have to run to get to a certain thing, so I'm putting myself at a pace that is sustainable. When I was a cross country runner, my 5K run was an 18:18 was my best time, which means it's 3.2 miles for those of you who can't do kilometers, right? So it's 3.2 miles. That means that I was sustaining a roughly 6-minute mile pace consecutively for 3 hours. I'm not a sprinter. So I don't operate my businesses. I don't run my content. I don't run my life with a sprinter mentality. Now, I might do sprints on occasion to clear a very difficult piece of terrain in life. There are pieces of terrain in life that are a little bit more difficult that I'm like, I'm going to sprint through that one. And so that's the mentality that I approach. I approach this with the athlete's mentality, with the marathon runner's mentality. And so I don't play short term. I play long term. And so I approach everything from that perspective. Even now, doing as much of the podcast as I am is about another set of long-term plays and the way that I'm thinking of these things. If you're getting value out of this and you're in the live audience, by the way, I need you to do me a favor. I need 100% of you watching this right now to smash the like button. And I'm not playing. If you've gotten any value out of the last hour of power, the last hour of fire, and you're watching the YouTube live experience, or if you're an hour in on the replay, I absolutely need 100% of you watching this content to smash the like button. I want that. I want 100% of you watching to smash the like button. Can you do that for me? And if you're watching this, or if you've been enjoying and listening to the podcast, if you go over to Apple, if you could leave us a rating and a review. If you're getting value out of this, I'd love a 5-star rating. If you're getting value out of this, I'd love a review with what you like about the podcast. So if you're listening to this in Apple Podcast, or if you're on the YouTube channel and you want to go to Apple Podcast and do that for me, I would be definitely grateful for it, because it does help the program. So yeah, with home ownership, I'd say one of the hardest things was, as a YouTuber, it was definitely not feeling respected for having a non-traditional career and being a self-employed person, and feeling like I was being questioned about the legitimacy of what I do. I believe that in another good, at least like 10 years, if not 5, that full-time content creators and YouTubers will get the same respect that graphic designers and web designers get today, and that photographers get today. Because when I was starting out, like I told you, in 2002, web design was still not considered a respectable, legitimate career that had a future. In 2002, people were still doubting the internet would last. In 2002, swear to you, people did not believe me in 2002 when I said every company in America will need a website. They did not believe me. And I was not in a position at 18 years old and broke to do anything about what I believed in back then. So now I'm just positioning so that when I predict the future, when I'm correct, when I read the tea leaves, by literally living in the present, I can predict the future. Because the problem is, experts, I'll tell you a secret about experts and gurus. Experts and gurus live in the past of what worked for them 10 or 20 years ago. They live in and romanticize the past. Here's the good news for me. The past was painful as hell. I ain't romantic about jack. Like, so since the past was painful as hell for me, I don't romanticize it. I just look to the future and I try to live in the present, and I try to use the data that I have in the present to help me stay ahead of the future. And so I don't trade in on my old 10 years of like whatever worked back then. I try to do stuff in real time. It's part of why I started the music channel last year. By the way, I started at the beginning of this year in 2021, the beginning of 2021, like February of 2021. I started a YouTube channel, youtube.com/ZenBusterMusic. Do y'all know why I started a brand new YouTube channel in a niche that I've never done in YouTube? To go back kind of to an old thing that I loved doing. I was super, super into music, in my teens and 20s. I used to make beats in college and in high school, by the way. I used to make beats and I used to make music in high school and college. I used to use this software called Cakewalk. Before that, it was called EJ, and then it got bought by another company. It was called Cakewalk. And so I used to do that stuff, right? And so for me, I wanted to do a music channel for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to start a new YouTube channel, and I wanted to start a faceless YouTube channel, right? Why? I wanted to be able to build a YouTube channel that wouldn't necessarily have any value trading in on my personality. And I wanted to see if it's possible to grow a YouTube channel where I can get potential views and stuff off of people who don't know who I am and don't care. And I wanted to grow it in a genre that someone could just go into, and this would give me a parallel to talk to people about music and ASMR and other types of content formats. Music's also scalable. It's an infinitely consumable product. You can listen to a song 1,000 times in a lifetime and not regret it, right? So I wanted that. The other thing is the different monetization streams long-term that going into audio and copyright-free music provides me with streaming royalty income on Spotify, Apple, all of that is another reason that I did that, right? But here's the best part. By starting a new YouTube channel from scratch at the beginning of 2021, I was able to taste what it's like to be a small YouTuber again and go through the full small YouTuber experience of unlocking features. I had to learn the new updates to the interface, the new policy changes. I had to see it with my own eyes. I had to taste it all over again, right? And I had to learn a new niche. And I had to learn different strategies outside of what I was normally used to. And I had to taste it all over again. And that makes a difference in my understanding of what a small YouTuber goes through, in a difference that many of my peers and contemporaries, they don't even know the menu systems have changed for starting like a new YouTube account from scratch. They haven't seen it. So I'm like, aha. And that's a distinct advantage. I will learn and start from scratch, and I'm not afraid to do it. And so that's just wildly different than what other people are willing to do. And I can also then talk about, well, here's what's working today, or here's data that I have from what's working today, or here's how it works for a small YouTuber now, or here are what the requirements are. A lot of my friends, when they make new YouTube channels, they get them monetized really quickly, and they get support, a lot of support from their existing audience on those things. Doing something new and different from scratch and saying, okay, well, what's realistic? It's not realistic for most small YouTubers to get monetized in 2 months or 3 months from just having massive help from the existing audience. I get a little bit of help from you all on the podcast channel because you can see that it's not like all 500,000 people came to the podcast channel. Most people on the main YouTube channel don't know about the podcast channel. And that's because honestly, I've been consistent enough on the podcast channel to justify pushing people to the podcast channel from the main channel. So it's really like doing it all over and starting from scratch. And you know what I'm doing right now? I'm doing what worked for me back in the day. I'm doing daily content. That's the thing that grew my channel the most until it wasn't. Daily content was what grew me the most until it wasn't. So guess what I'm doing? I'm doing kind of like daily content. With the music channel, there's going to be a point next year when I get some new tracks from my ghost producers. There's going to be a point where I might do a month-long blitz in 2022 to where, oh crap, I might literally have a month where I drop either a track or a mixtape or a compilation or something, or an hour loop, and get out 30 pieces of content in 30 days on the music channel or something like that. So there's there's all these different things I can do and experiment that let me taste it, let me learn from scratch all over again, let me embrace what being a small YouTuber is all over again, and not do it halfway, have like the full experience. What you guys may not realize is that most of the thumbnails on the podcast, I'm doing them in Canva instead of using all my fancy Photoshop software, all my fancy Adobe software. I'm doing my podcast thumbnails in Canva to be able to fully master making that stuff in Canva, to make it more, to make myself able to relate more to what you guys are doing, and to say, okay, here's how to do this, here's a trick, here's a thing, because I will have lived it more than, and by doing something that has less, by acting like I have less. On my More Roberto Blake channel, I'm going to be doing vlogging. I'm going to probably do vlog every day in April. I'm going to do vlog every day in August. And next year on that channel, I'll probably do Vlogmas, so that I can taste that too. And I can talk about those things more and those experiences more. And for that channel, guess what I do for that channel? For that channel, I use an entry-level camera and I use a cheap lens for that channel, so that I can make content the way that you might be making content. Because I won't have to remember what it's like to be small or to have less. I'll know. Now, granted, for me, it's optional, but it's really going back to my roots and just saying, okay, I know how to do more with less because I'm still doing it. It keeps me from getting soft. It keeps me from getting spoiled, is to just go back to the grind and just say, I'm going to give myself a constraint. I'm going to do what an artist does. I'm going to give myself a weird limitation, or make this challenging so that I can play on hard mode, because it's just kind of like playing like Metroid, where oh, great, you're Samus Aran, the universe famous galactic bounty hunter. And then, oh, I lost all my skills and abilities and I have to learn them from scratch, or if you played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, oh, I'm the hero and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I lost all my memories, lost all my abilities, have to start over from scratch. So I like doing that, because as a gamer, that is the thing that I relate to. And that's the challenge for me with these things. And so I actually like learning new things. I actually like starting things over from scratch and trying to build it back up. Someone asked, what about using the handycam that I showed you? The reason that I can't necessarily do that is the file formats are harder to deal with from the old format. I mean, you can still technically get MP4 out of this, but yeah, I'm gonna figure something out with getting footage from this, but processing old codecs is actually really hard, believe it or not. Like, old codecs aren't always compatible with certain things. So it's like, that's a little rough. I probably can use Handbrake or something to convert, but that's a whole thing. So I bring this up, and I bring this as an example, is like when I had to learn about everything personal finance that I did to get into homeownership and prepare, I had to study for this. I had to prepare for this. And I had to prepare for the extra level of scrutiny of being a small business owner. So that meant my credit had to be in order. That meant my taxes had to be in order. My accounting and bookkeeping had to be in order. All of that. And I had to be prepared, and I had to save money and have the capital on hand. I also had to know how to negotiate and prepare to negotiate for the for getting the stuff back from the inspection and appraisal, and put myself in that position. I had to have contingency plans. I had to look up, everything for getting a power of attorney. I had to do all of those things, and I had to prepare because I was a rookie. Now I have the knowledge. Now I know more about home ownership, home equity, home loans, the lending process. I now have an experience I didn't have before. Knowledge is power. What you don't know is the thing that usually hurts you. And so now I have another level. One of the only things that I really didn't know about in personal finance, and the things I hadn't experienced, is I've experienced, okay, rebuild your credit from zero, get stuff removed, blah, 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 get an 800 credit score. All right, done that. I understand credit, understand the assignment. Okay, earning, make six figures. Okay, understand the assignment, do that. Pay down debt, Oh, I've paid down tens of thousands of dollars of debt before. Okay, I've done that. Saving money. Oh, I've saved money before. I've saved the $10,000 emergency fund before. I've saved over that because I had to save for the house. So I've saved, tens of thousands of dollars before. Oh, I've definitely done that because of investing. Oh, like invest high sums of money. So like I um, you know, learned how to earn more money. I learned how to budget and spend. I learned how to handle credit. I learned how to deal with loans. I learned how to invest and learned about my retirement accounts. I learned how to deal with my taxes with my bookkeepers and my accountants and how to save on my taxes. And now I understand home ownership and how to deal with getting into a home loan, how to pay a mortgage. I understand the interest rates. I understand all of that. And so there's not much from that standpoint um, to check in the box in terms of my understanding of how money and finance works. There's more things tricks I can learn with investing, I'm sure. There's a few other things with regard to I've learned a lot about business credit as well. There's probably a good deal more I could learn there. There's always something more to learn. But in terms of the biggest hurdles of what to learn about money and finance and property and things that 90% of people don't know, I figured out how to clear those hurdles. And I did as a self-employed person. I did as somebody that didn't go to college for it. I did it as somebody with a non-traditional background. And I did it as someone who truly came from nothing. And I tell you this because it's like all you have to do is do your homework and learn how something works and how it works for your circumstances and how to apply it. And that will make a world of difference in your life. And it's not something you're going to do that's going to change your life in just 1 year. It's going to take more. It's like I wasn't able, and I'm not sure I would know how to just automatically just like, oh, I'm going to radically change my life in 1 year. I'm not sure I would know how to even do that. What I know and what I've focused on and what I've been focusing on and the way that I do it is I believe in the concept of a decade of discipline, a decade of good, solid habits, consistent hard work over a long period of time to change your circumstances by changing things about yourself, changing your abilities, changing your skills, changing your understanding, your knowledge, the things that you have that I feel would be able to make the most meaningful difference. And so that's what I focus on. I focus on why would something in my life be different? What would change that? Why would that change? And what I've learned is the thing that is most likely, in my opinion, to change your outcome and your circumstances is changing yourself, changing as many of the variables about yourself as you can. What level of skill and ability do I have? Who do I know? Who's in my network? What are my skills and abilities? What's my value to the marketplace? What are my abilities and knowledge to negotiate? What are my understanding of how I spend my money? Like those things. Someone in the chat is saying, Frederick is saying, hard work isn't always good because then you can become depressed and anxious. I disagree. I fundamentally disagree with that. If you're depressed and anxious, it's not because you're working hard. If you're depressed and anxious, it's not because of hard work. If you're depressed and anxious, it's some underlying issue. Yeah. And it's like, but you need to make a solution for yourself instead of a problem. Yeah. Like people don't get depressed because of hard work. And see, that's the other thing I don't think people understand about the Great Resignation or even about entrepreneurship or about quote unquote hustle. It's about, do you enjoy the process of the things that you're doing or don't you? You see, if you work hard at things you like, you're not trying to escape or get out of the. Have you guys noticed that I have not talked about retirement or quitting or like, I'm like, I will probably want to create things and make things to the day I die. It may or may not be videos. It could be this book writing career that I've started with writing my first book. It could be that it's like, okay, I'm writing books for the rest of my life. There's a such thing as like, do you think a writer wants to retire? Do you think a musician wants to retire? Do you think a painter wants to retire? No. And yet they want to work and they want to paint to the day they die. They want to write to the day they want. They want to make films to the day they die. They want to, like, an artist doesn't want to retire, not from art. An artist doesn't want to retire from art. They may want to retire from making what other people want to making what they want and just purely expressing themselves. That's a different thing, but it doesn't mean they want to stop creating. So when people say, oh, I don't dream of labor or I don't dream of work or whatever, it's like, well, that's because of their relationship with work and what they are working on. That's because of what they are working on. So think about that. People who enjoy what they do, they don't think about quitting. They don't think about retiring. And people who like what they do, they don't like complain about how the level of difficulty involved. Not really. They could admit to, and there will be hard times, make no mistake, but they enjoy the process. They enjoy the process. But you also have to enjoy the people that you work with. If you don't like the people you work with, then it'll be very hard. It'll be very difficult. Most people don't even quit their jobs, honestly. Most people aren't quitting their jobs. Most people are quitting their bosses. Yep, I said it. Most people, I don't think that they're quitting their jobs. I think they're quitting their bosses. Most people probably aren't quitting their jobs. They're quitting their coworkers. Most people aren't quitting their jobs. They're quitting their circumstances. That's what I believe. And so when you realize that, it just hits differently. It just hits differently. So what I can tell you is this. If you're, and we'll wrap this up. If you're a YouTuber or a TikToker or a Twitch streamer or content creator, and you're dreaming of home ownership, it's not that the American dream is dead. It's that you have to make your own version of it. The American dream is not dead. If you're a self-employed person, you can achieve the American dream. The things that you have to do is you have to not be scared of credit and credit cards. You have to be disciplined, because discipline is going to be the answer, the antidote for any of that fear and anxiety you have about credit. It's going to come down to discipline, fiscal discipline. Okay. You need to be able to prove to people that you can handle money. And so don't be scared of the credit cards. Master your emotions, and you have nothing to fear from credit cards if you master your emotions. Don't be an emotional spender. Be a strategic spender. All right? So that's another thing. In terms of where you want to live, New York and California are really crappy for home ownership. It's not even great for renters. It may be where you might need to build your career, but consider the fact that remote work's a real thing. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can work anywhere. You can work anywhere in the world if you're an entrepreneur and you speak English. Okay? You can work anywhere. If you're a content creator, you can work anywhere. If you're a content creator, it might be a really great idea to consider even leaving America for a few years and saving a crap ton of money and then coming back and buy whatever you want in cash because you saved all this money. So if you are if you're an American and you're a content creator and you can afford to say, hey, you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll leave and go abroad for a while. It might be cheaper and you could live hella cheap and save up a ton of money. You just have to be safe. So maybe you do that. But for a lot of you, it's like maybe California and New York isn't the answer. The markets are bad. The taxes are astronomical. The cost of living is high. It may not be worth it. What you might want to do is, if you have always dreamed of being in those places, you might want to go somewhere more affordable, make money, save money, get some equity, and then come back to those places a conqueror. You might want to leave and come back a conqueror. So you might be able to go somewhere and save and invest more money and then come back with stronger capital for New York or California. You can come down to the South. There are places like Florida and Texas that don't have state taxes. You could save a lot of money. The real estate markets are pretty good sometimes. And so there's opportunity there. You also get more house for the money. And so it might be better, you know? And so what I do is like, and some English, American English with this guy saying credit cards are bad, bank loans are the way to go. My thing with credit cards is nothing is bad. It's a matter of whether your habits are. Nothing is as bad as your habits. Something is only as good or as bad as your habits. That's what I believe. Anything is only as good or as bad as your habits. So like the thing that I would say is you have to be disciplined, you have to be thoughtful, you have to have a real plan. Part of being anxious is worrying if you'll get a workout. I'll tell you something interesting. Depression is the trauma of the past, anxiety is the fear of the future. And the antidote to both, the antidote and the cure for both is to live more in the present. Watch this. See that? See what I just did? Your depression is tied to the trauma and pain of the past. Your anxiety is tied to your fear of the future and the unknown. The antidote and cure to both is to live more in the present. Boom. Easier said than done. Sure. But still facts. Still facts. So that's the thing. And with that in mind, being mindful and thoughtful of the actions that you're going to take, informed by your past, with a goal and a plan for the future that you want, is how your actions in the present become meaningful and lead you to mastery. It's about mastery of yourself. And this is the goal. And this is where, this is the thing. This is the part of me that's like super philosophical, right? So I actually subscribe to Aristotle. I believe it's Aristotle or Plato's ideal. I think it's probably Plato's ideal. Plato's ideal of the philosopher king, right? Plato's ideal of the philosopher king, of a person of tremendous discipline, thoughtfulness, integrity, with both the capacity to be compassionate and empathetic, but also strategic, mindful, and ruthless when necessary to do good governance and to be essentially a warrior and a scholar. The mind of a scholar, the heart and courage of a warrior, to be able to take on difficult things, not in the absence of fear, but in overcoming that fear and mastering one's emotions, and not to kill one's heart, but to temper one's passions through mindfulness and intelligence and reason. And so that is the temperament that I strive for, is the ideal that I have, is when I read about this and I understood this, I read about this and I started to understand this more in my 20s. I started to live it more, I would say, in the end of my 20s, the beginning of my early 30s. And I'm starting to really appreciate it as I inch my way to 40, of thinking that I might be able to make myself closer to this ideal that I have of what Plato envisioned for a philosopher king, right? And it's actually theoretically easier to be one than the other. It's much easier to be a king, or it's much easier to just be a philosopher. To do both, to be a philosopher king, is actually probably one of the most difficult challenges someone could desire to undertake, because you can be massively just successful and you could do that, or you could be very mindful and thoughtful and very educated. Doing both is very difficult. You could just be a brutal conqueror and a brute. It's very difficult to rule and to lead as an academic. So it's this really interesting duality. And I just always think about that, right? So for me, what I look at is you have to master your emotions when it comes to money and finance. You have to be thoughtful about your career and your abilities, and diversify your abilities. Be mindful of what the world wants and needs. Be mindful of your boundaries and your barriers, and really put yourself in that position. And then finally, you need to just really have a deep appreciation and respect for the people around you, and to be able to learn from them, grow with them, but also have boundaries where needed, and treat people how to, or sorry, or either teach people how you want to be treated and hold them to that, and make the consequence of not doing that not being in your life. And those are things that can protect you. In terms of getting into homeownership, again, the frustrating thing is not feeling respected as a content creator, not feeling respected as a YouTuber, a streamer, entrepreneur, or a freelancer, or whatever you're doing. And I think that that's going to change and evolve over time. But the way that you counter the downsides of them not respecting you is making yourself respectable by having your bookkeeping and accounting in place. So, like I said, you can use my link for bench accounting, and they help with that. They work with YouTubers, they work with entrepreneurs, they work with non-traditional people, both a team to help you and some really cool apps and software and automation there. So for me, I believe you have to get your finances in order. So rebuild or establish your credit history. Make sure your accounting and taxes are done, even if you have to have them go and do back cataloging and do your books for years that you may have not had that all together. Do that. You're going to need 2 to 3 years of solid bookkeeping minimum. You're going to need a minimum of 2 to 3 years of solid bookkeeping. So you might have to pay to have your old books done. You're going to need the last 2 to 3 years of your taxes and your tax transcripts. So go ahead and get those ready. And you're going to need to be prepared to disclose your bank accounts and your bank account statements. And so you're going to want to do that. You probably are going to want to make sure that you have your money for your deposit and your closing cost. The money that you need is not just the whatever percentage down. Like, again, I paid like 3.5 or something like that, 3.5, 4.5. I forget now because we kept changing what it was going to be. But yeah, whatever percentage you're putting down doesn't have to be 20%. You have to have that set aside, but you also need to have about $1,500 aside, maybe closer to maybe have $2,500 aside for both an inspection and an appraisal. And with the inspection, you're going to want to take that and use that to negotiate some repairs or a contribution to your closing cost from the seller, which then will get the money you have to have up front down. Your earnest money, that's the money you have to come to the table with to show that you're serious about putting in a bid on this house. You're probably going to want to have $5,000 or more set aside from that. So like home ownership for a lot of you, consider the fact that the total cost of getting into a home is probably going to be maybe somewhere between $12,000 and $20,000 realistically, depending on where you live, as long as it's not New York or California. I'm mostly speaking about if you're going to live in the South or the Midwest. If you're not going to live in New York or California, and you're going to go into a reasonable home, and you're going to do like 3.5% down, 4% down, 5% down, something other than 10 or 20, then be prepared to have $12,000 to $20,000 to cover your closing cost, in terms of all your fees, your appraisal, your inspection, your earnest money, all of those things. Just make sure that that's what you have. And then you're probably fine in terms of your capital. For your capacity, have your paperwork, have 3 years of bookkeeping, accounting, and taxes, the last 6 months of bank statements, have that. Have your profit and loss statements, have that. Just have full financial transparency ready. So then the capacity is in place. The collateral is you getting the inspection. Once you find a house, it's the inspection, the appraisal, and that takes care of that. And then other than that, it's your credit. You don't need a perfect credit score. I would say having something in the 700s is probably in your best interest for lower rates, but it is what it is. So just try and fix that as best as you can. And so those are the things you have to do. That's what I had to do. Those are the 4 C's. That's what made this all work. And aside from that, what made it work was the success that came from having a great community and from having the opportunity to participate in the creator economy, having great partners, having great sponsors, and having a clear vision and always learning and adapting and growing. And that's what did it for me. That's what got me here. And so now you know. But anyway, that's it for this episode on my journey to buying a house as a full-time YouTuber. I hope it was informative. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. This was a longer episode, but that's going to be it. We're going to do a very, very short, rapid fire. I'm only going to take 3 questions with the live audience at the end of the podcast. If you're an audio listener, definitely want to show up for the lives. So make sure you're subscribed over on the YouTube channel. Stay awesome, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. Hungry for more creative and practical ideas? Why not visit createsomethingawesometoday.com and access all resources and links mentioned in today's show, as well as special bonus content that Roberto regularly crafts for you. Now, go create something awesome today. createsomethingawesometoday.com.
All right, I'm just going to acknowledge a few things here in the chat as we wrap up. And this is the part that's edited out of the audio only version. Anthony says, "Hey Roberto, how's it going? What do you look for when accepting new people into your Awesome Creator Academy?" Mostly as far as the group membership, it's pretty straightforward if you go to the website. What we're looking for usually is people that are serious and committed in their creator journey and are committed to basically being a professional content creator, growing and building their audience, and have the discipline to pursue it and treat it like a real career and want to grow it as a business or as a full-time career. So that's usually what we're looking for. Supermondo says, Kelly Stamp said in one of her videos recently that she believes that people that have gone through a lot of pain in their life seem to now be repeating the benefits of their struggle. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I have to watch her video. It sounds maybe like it's right. I have to watch it and see what she means. And when you guys, if I'm not reading the thing that you post, please don't spam it like 3 and 4 and 5 times. Thanks. James Dean says, credit cards definitely aren't bad. You lose out on so many deals and end up paying more using cash. I basically use credit card hacking to get free money, the way I do it. Let's see. Satria's Art and Comics channel says, thank you for sharing. Plan to join your Awesome Creator Academy in the spring. If you'll accept me, I've waited too long. Yeah, no, please do. Ellie Cinco says, let's go. Yep. Coffee Talk and Text says, enjoyed learning more about you. Yeah, it's good to open up and share sometimes, as emotional as it can be. Yep. But yeah, I have to run, everybody. I actually have to, one, I have to eat something, and then I have to actually prepare for today. I have a 4 o'clock today, but thank you so much for everybody who joined in. Oh, we got one more. We got one last one, and then we'll go. Do you feel the home you bought is your forever home? Will you buy more to Airbnb and flip? I'll tell you a short secret, and then we'll go. I am probably just going to hang on to this forever. I don't know that it'll be my forever home. I will probably have to get a different house whenever I get into a long-term relationship and I get married. And so when I have a wife and kids, I'll probably have to be in a different house. And I'll probably buy something that was built more recently than this house based on all the upgrades and renovations I had to do to this house. And then my future plan is I have less of an Airbnb plan, even though I may do that. But my approach is going to be different. My plan is creator economy real estate. My plan is YouTube content houses. My plan is to eventually, and I might even take investors to help me do this, my plan is this: to go to those areas that are best for content creators that probably are tax free. Florida, Nevada, Texas. Get these houses that will let these younger influencers flex and look a lot richer, and let 5, 6, or 8 of them live in a house and go into a house and they have this beautiful Instagram ready house that cost more than what they could afford individually, and go to a place and specifically pick locations that have like either very high gigabit internet or Google Fiber or whatever, and like really good locations, privacy, all that good stuff. Buy these houses as content houses and then lease them with minimum 2-year lease agreements to creators. And then by having that, I get a very successful cash flow real estate business out of content houses. I get to constantly, and I'll never raise the rents on them. And I'll keep making improvements to the stuff to raise the value. And I'll never raise the rents on them. The rent will be raised on the next group of people if they don't renew the lease. As long as they renew the lease, they get to keep the rates, even if the value of the property goes up. I will let them stay at their same rate as long as they renew a 2-year lease every time. And then I'll cash flow. And so by doing that, I'll end up with a very substantial real estate investment portfolio. But that's a plan for my 40s. See, that's a plan for my 40s. I worked for other people age 17 to 27, right? I've done the beginnings of building my empire, 27 to 37, to get myself in a good place of financial stability and stuff like that. And then I'm going to be like building, hustling, and investing from 37 to 47. And that's why 10 years from now, I will probably 10 years from now make more money off my investments than off of my business. The investments I make over the next 10 years, the investments I will be making over the next 10 years will probably do much better for me than just straight up making money from hustling. It'll be investments that'll probably do it. So that's my plan. That's my plan. So from that perspective, sure, I'm going to end up buying more homes. I'll probably buy something again. When I buy something, to start a family, I'm probably not going to buy anything bigger or more extravagant than this. This is quite a lot of house as it is, but I bought this house because I needed to renovate the basement to make a studio. And an office in the basement. And I also, again, I converted the dining room here into a full office, and it's actually pretty good. But there's just more things I can do with sound treatment and stuff like that by renovating the full basement. And so that's what's up. But anyway, that's it, everybody. Stay awesome. Please catch the replay. If you missed any of this, please share the podcast and please smash the like button, do all the things. I'll catch you later. And hopefully later this evening, I'll have a regular YouTube video, probably around 8 or 9 o'clock on the main channel. All right. Take care, everybody.